Welcome to parameters versus statistics. So quickly, let's just take a look at the definitions. So a parameter is a numerical summary of the population data. So a parameter is a numerical summary of the population data. This is usually what we are trying to estimate or trying to study, right? So, because we want to know the population information. A statistic is sort of the parallel numerical summary of the sample data. So a statistic is a numerical summary of the sample data. And we will use the statistic to make our inferences, our educated guesses about the parameter. So we use our statistic to make inferences about the population. So they're very nice with the starting letter, right? Statistics starts with S, it goes with the sample. So statistic S for sample. Parameter P for population. So we usually can find the sample statistic. We know the sample statistic. It depends on which sample we're using. Whereas the population parameter is fixed. That population will only have one numerical summary for whatever value it is we're trying to find. So the main parameters that we will study, or the main numerical summaries that we will study, will be the mean, the standard deviation, and proportion. These are our three main statistics and parameters we will work with. So we will have the notation for the parameter, the population parameter. And then we will have the notation for the sample statistic. So this is the population parameter versus the sample statistic. So we have already actually seen the symbols for the mean and standard deviation for both the sample statistic and the population parameter. So our sample statistic for the mean was that X with a bar on top. And our sample statistic for standard deviation was simply an S. The population parameter, this is what we saw when we were studying probability. The mean was the Greek letter mu, pronounced mu, M-E-W. We usually spell it actually mu. And then standard deviation is the Greek letter sigma, pronounced sigma. For proportion, population parameter, we use a regular P. And sample statistic, we use a P with a hat on top. So these are the notations we usually use. So again, we want the population parameter. So if we want mu, we find X bar and use it to make inferences about mu. If we want sigma, we find S for some sample, use it to make inferences about sigma, etc. So just some notes. So note, population parameter is fixed. As in it's just one number. So a population parameter is fixed for the population. It's one specific number. On the other hand, a sample statistic is going to depend on the sample you pick. So there are thousands of samples we can pick from a population, and each sample might yield a different sample statistic. So the sample statistic depends on the sample we pick. So there are typically there are thousands of possible samples we could pick. And depending on which sample we choose, we may find a different mean or a different standard deviation or a different proportion. So this is just sort of basics, notation, vocabulary. In module 17, we will be focusing on proportion. So we will be looking at possible p-hats, possible sample proportions, and how we can use them to make guesses about the population proportion.